All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Word with Ty Brownlow. I am your host, Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless, no story is worthless. And today, ladies and gentlemen, hey, my guest, hometown cooking. If you already know, if you watch this show, you know how I feel about people from Chicago, my hometown. Today, joining me all the way from Chicago. Man, please put your hands together for Miss Florence and Romano.
Woohoo! Midwest love. That is my thing. I am so excited.
Yes. Look, this is going to be a great show, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just give you a little background about Miss Florence and Romano here. She is a personal growth strategist, and she's also an author. And we're going to talk about her book. But we're here to talk a little bit teenagers, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. And for my parents out there, look, please put the wine down, put whatever else down. Let's just have a talk right now. Let's just, have a heart to heart. And American teenagers, basically, they are experiencing the highest level of sadness, From 2009, I believe, to 2021, the share of American high school students who feel that, they're just, they feel that their, persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness, that rose from 24% to 44%, according to a CDC study, and that's in 2022. So today, we're going to talk about how to build our village. So Miss Florence and Romano here, she's just, she's going to talk to us and she's going to give us a little bit of tips. But before we get into that, as I mentioned beforehand, you are an author. And the name of your book is Build Your Village, a guide to finding joy and community in every stage of life. Can we talk a little bit about this book?
Well, I'm so thrilled to be talking about it as the book that just came out, because for a while it's been that book that's coming out on February 21st. And I've been saying that for months and months and months. And now finally I can say it's available. It's out. And so it's like, oh my gosh, after like 13 months of saying that. So I'm thrilled. But really, honestly, Ty, I wrote it because of a common denominator that I felt we all had on a global level. And it really came down to COVID, because during COVID, I looked around and I thought, for the first time, again, on this global level, we all know what it feels like to have our community, our people ripped away from us.
True.
And it's amazing to think that we all share that bond of knowing how that feels to be disconnected. And then all of a sudden it was time to reemerge. And we were like, I don't know. I don't think I really want to see people in real life. I feel like my Netflix and my yoga pants are a lot more interesting than in real life connection. And I was like, all right, I get that, because I wanted to stay in my little cocoon too, if I was honest with myself. But then we started seeing all the data about the loneliness. And that started to really rock my soul, because we were on a path that was going to have enormous consequences. And some of the statistics you just mentioned about how kids feel emotionally, mentally, as we see in the news, there's so much regarding mental health that needs to be addressed. All of this is part of that, that pebble that drops in the pond and creates that ripple effect. And so I really wanted to write a book that gave directions to building community, because that old proverb, it takes a village, is usually attached to raising children. But what about people who don't have kids? Don't they deserve people too? So I wanted to be inclusive, and that's why it's every stage of life.
Now, you know what? That's a very interesting point, because as you said, normally we talk about it takes a village, and we're normally talking about children, raising children. It takes everyone to raise children. But those who don't have that, but they need that support, where do they go? Where's their village?
Exactly. And I think that you are born into whatever you're born into, okay? And you have to sometimes just accept that. But then there comes a point in your life where you're like, you know what? I'm looking at the landscape of it and it's not working for me. Okay. This isn't all working. So I need to take some control here, because one of my favorite things to say is when you feel out of control, there's always a place in your life to try and take some sort of control. But we have to want it. We have to want to change whatever's going on in our personal ecosystem. So you could sit there and tell me, I'm lonely, I feel disconnected, I don't feel like I have the right support around me, the right friends. But no one's just going to show up at your front door, Ty, and be like, hey, I'm here to be your friend and support you and love you through it. And anything you need, I'm here for you. That's not how the world works. These villagers just don't show up out of nowhere. Right. We have to be part of that solution. But I also understand that taking that first step seems extremely daunting. It seems overwhelming, but I don't want it to feel like such a heavy lift. I want people to understand that a lot of what you need to do probably already exists around you. We just need to be creative about how we're approaching and leveraging those relationships, and then being very intentional about filling the voids too.
Okay. All right. Now, and you do hit on some good points, like, you have to be mindful of who you are keeping around. If you have a circle of people around you that where you want to be in, where you are right now. Right. It's just not shaking for you. Right. I want to be, I want more. I want better. Well, if I'm in a foul mood and the people around me are in a foul mood, then who's going to get anywhere?
Yeah.
I mean, and let's just take it a step further. How can we break free of that mindset? Because I've seen it, whereas sometimes you can put people who have been in those toxic relationships or, those toxic surroundings in a positive environment, but they just can't function because of, it's just the culture shock of this positivity, and I don't know how to handle that. So, like, how can a person handle the reverse end of that as well? Yeah.
I feel like energy is what it all comes down to, I think, in life. It's an energy exchange with all of us. Sometimes you walk into a room, Ty, and you can feel like it just feels a little icky, and you're like, oh, I think I want to stay here. Or you meet
I want to get out of here then.
Right? You're like, I gotta go, and there's a problem at home, or I gotta wash my hair. Or you meet people and you're just don't jive, and I think those are the important lessons, just as much as I could sit here and talk about the positive ways that you should be making connections with people, the positive attributes you should be looking for in people. I also believe that the challenges that we have in life, or the negative things that happen to us in life, are also teaching us enormous lessons about ourselves and what we need. I had someone tell me the other day that she had a falling out with a friend of hers who was a good friend of her all through college. And her friend started going through a lot of challenges, a lot of changes, a lot of transitions. And some of it was very toxic for the girl that was chatting with me to engage with. And she said, I had to make a really difficult choice about, cutting ties with her, or allowing myself to continue being a part of that orbit that wasn't healthy. And I applauded her for saying, I did eventually kind of pull away and say, I really can't be what you need in terms of that support, or I can't support the things that you're choosing to do. And I think that was more so what it was. And I have a chapter in my book about when the village burns down. And sometimes the village burns down because you burn it down, or someone else does, or, it's a little bit of both, who knows? But there is beauty in the breakdown. There's something you learn from all of that. And I'm very, very inspired by people that have the self-awareness to know when they need to exit stage right.
And it's, the awareness to know when to exit stage right. And, a lot of times we talk about trauma bonds and this, that, what have you. Yep. And sometimes those can be formed into friendships. Yes. And when you outgrow the trauma bond, it's now, okay, what do we have now?
Right.
Because I'm no longer in this place where I was however long ago it was when I met you. I'm not going to say what the time frame is, but if I'm but if I'm no longer in this place, I've seen it where, that can cause friction, and the person who has grown and who has that growth, they're sort of like guilt tripped into, basically having a growth mindset almost, in a sense. Like, how do we handle that?
Well, I love the example of the trauma bond, because I think also there too is, yes, you're helping each other during that transition or during that healing. But what if you're not healing at the same rate? So then, like you're saying, one person's kind of evolved to this point and the other one is not quite there yet. But this person's ready to take that next step, ready to leave certain things behind, kind of like a snake, like shedding a skin. But if that person that you're connected to and almost dependent on is not ready to take that next step, then they could keep you from evolving, from getting to that next level of healing or progress. And that's not healthy. And that at that time, then it's you who have to figure out, do I need to separate myself from this person because I need to put myself first? Or am I going to feel guilty about leaving this person when it's going to feel like there's an abandonment factor attached to it? And so that's a lot for a person to try to process through when having to make such a big decision. But I would say that in that case, very specifically, you don't have to say, I'm no longer going to be a part of this person's life. It just may be that you're not going to be a part of that person's healing in the way that you have been. That relationship can continue, but maybe in a different way. I don't believe in throwing people away when they no longer serve you, but I do believe in having honest conversations about the health of the relationship. And I think that's what we're kind of talking about here, is the health factor.
Ding, ding, ding. No. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The health factor of the relationship, because it's so easy to not look at that aspect of it.
Right.
Because let's just be honest. A lot of times, you may get a phone call. It may be a lot of give. You're getting that advice. You're getting your time. You're getting all these things, and they're just take. And my thing is how? Okay, how can we grow? How can I, expand? Look, every time I talk to you, and it's been this way since we've known each other. Yeah. I mean, I've always been there. I've always poured into you. I've always been there. Okay, this is always going one-sided.
Right.
I need to surround myself with people that, they're not going to take my energy. They're not going to take my time. The conversations I'm going to have with them are going to be positive conversations instead of conversations where I feel as if I'm always getting.
Right.
So when you talk about the health of a relationship, we don't look into that. Or if we do, sometimes when we let the other person know, well, hey, I've noticed, the past couple of months, it's always been one-sided when I talk to you, this and the other. Man, do you think you can help me out? And I've seen it where the other person gets upset.
Sure, of course.
And
of course.
We're left thinking what is it that I did wrong?
Right. Well, I'll tell you what. people don't like the word boundaries, Ty. They get upset when you say that the boundary needs to be created. And I heard it said once, and I loved it, said, if you get mad about a person creating a boundary, then it just shows you that the boundary was needed in the first place. So, I thought, yeah, that's it. That's the special sauce right there. And I feel like when it comes to the relationship you're describing specifically, it's difficult because we don't want to think that we're keeping score in any of the relationships that we're in. Like, I have been this type of friend to you, and I expect to be paid back for that, so let's make sure we're doing this dance constantly of I do this for you and you do this for me, and it's all transactional all the time. And it can't be that way.
Right.
Because my best friend and I say this to each other, I'm so lucky that you're not a mess at the same time I am. It's so well balanced, because if we both were messes at the same time, this relationship would be a disaster, but we're so good at making sure that we're not. And it's a joke, but it just kind of, ends up being that way. But what makes relationships work is because there's that mutual respect. There is that communication, there is that honesty. And in my book, I create these 6 villagers that I'm saying this is 10, 6, I'm sorry, but I got excited into jazz hands instead of actually the number. And I created 6 villagers because I wanted people to be able to relate to something that was very tangible and say, okay, if I was going to cast a play or a movie and I needed the main characters, these are the main 6. And I describe each of the villagers, but without me even saying what the definition is, Ty, I'm just going to say the 6 to you right now, because I know what you're going to do, and I'm going to say what I think you're going to do after I say the 6. So the 6 villagers are accepting, dependable, cheerleader, communicator, organizer, and healer. So those are the 6 that I created. Now, without me telling you what the definition is, I bet you already started thinking about, oh, what do my friends fit into those categories? So
come on now.
Right, okay, in your heads. Yeah, I do that. But the reason I say that is because, again, this shouldn't be such a heavy lift for people. I've gotten those books the same way anyone else does. You start reading it and you're like, I'm not going to do any of this. This is so hard. No way. You put it on the shelf, you never look at it again. You're like, so I get it. So I didn't want people to feel like this was not attainable. This was not doable. So that's the whole point, is start thinking about the people in your life and how you would cast them into those categories. Maybe you have one person that's all of those. Maybe you have multiple accepting villagers, multiple healers, but you don't have any cheerleaders. And maybe that's why you're feeling a little depleted, a little lonely, because no one's there for you as your hype person, standing next to you in those moments of transition, perhaps, that you need. And so that's the point. The point is to start really looking at the nooks and crannies of your life and those relationships and figuring out what do I need, but also, and also equally important, looking at who you are and which villager you are to other people. Who am I in other people's villages? What do I need to work on too to be a better version of that villager? Or maybe I want to be a cheerleader villager and I just haven't been working on those skills, but I'm going to do that this year. Instead of my New Year's resolution being to lose 10 pounds, my New Year's resolution is to be the best cheerleader villager I could ever be. There's that work that you could do on yourself, man. Like what you could do to change the ecosystem of your life and the other lives that you touch, that's powerful stuff.
Man, well, so ladies and gentlemen, that's what personal growth strategists. We're talking about growth, personal growth. Right, okay, right. We're not depleting, we are growing. Okay, and we're expanding. And in order to expand, you have to have that. Well, first. You have to be accountable. You have to set the boundaries. Yep. And I know, as you just said, hey, we don't always, Ty, that B word, I don't like that. That A word, I don't like that either. I don't want to
Right.
be held accountable for any of the actions that I'm doing.
Of
But
course.
how do you get the personal growth? So
Right.
when I take it back to what I originally discussed, earlier when we were talking about the study from the CDC, when they were talking about, teenagers experiencing the highest level of sadness,
Right.
from 2009 to 2021. Like when we're talking about 26% to 44%, that's a huge jump.
Huge. Huge.
That is a huge jump. So, like, how do we surround ourselves and how do we get that system of support for our physical, mental, and emotional health?
Again, I think it's going back to the idea that we have to do the work on ourselves first to understand what it is that we're lacking, to understand why we're feeling the way we are. Feelings are never wrong, but the reaction you have to the feeling sometimes is wrong. That's what we teach children. You can feel however you want to feel, but how you react, that's sometimes the behavior that has to be addressed, or, that's where consequences come from, whatever it might be. But as we get older, I think one thing I learned, because I was in childcare for 15 years, I was a nanny. So I worked with a lot of kids and families. And, you always heard that phrase, it starts in the sandbox. And I love that. And I understand that. But who puts the sand in the sandbox? Well, the adults do. So when we look at these statistics about kids and how they're reacting to things, how they are processing things or not processing things, you have to look at the emotional growth of, I think, a human being and in the emotional language of a human being. I think we're getting better as a society, making it more common to talk about why we're feeling a certain way, how we react to certain things. Parents are now being more accountable for their behavior, how they speak to their children. Now, I was raised in an old school Italian family, right? You respect your elders, right? All of that. I believe in that.
Yeah.
But one thing that my dad didn't do very well, and learned as I got older and older, I'm the oldest of 4 siblings, was my dad had a hard time with apologizing for when he made a mistake. And I'm seeing parents now be very good about saying, you know what, honey, I don't like how I just spoke to you. It wasn't okay that I spoke to you that way. Now maybe they're in trouble. Maybe the kid did something and it set you off and they're still going to have a punishment. I'm not saying that that's still not going to happen, but just the awareness that you didn't feel like you were your best self in that moment gives those kids permission to make mistakes in their life too, but be accountable for how they make someone else feel. And I think this is where I know this is a very large, kind of exaggerated example for what you're talking about, but the point I'm trying to make in giving this illustration is that a statistic like that happens because we are not taking the time to properly address this stuff with kids from a role model point of view. It starts with us. If we want these kids to learn an emotional language in order to express themselves, respect people, be kind, be tolerant, all of those things, then we have to look and see what type of example we're setting and who we're surrounding these kids with. And that's why a statistic like that exists.
And so, once again, ladies and gentlemen, ding, ding, ding. Okay. She has hit the nail on the head. I mean, but let's just go back to it, being accountable, right. And look, lots of times we mimic what we see.
Exactly.
Man, we mimic what we hear, man, or hey, someone has said something to us, you know what, I may want to try that, And where's the responsibility? Where's the accountability from us, as like the teachers and the parents and caretakers and what else,
The village.
Village. We are the villagers.
Yes,
okay? So,
you are the villagers.
Man, if the villagers are not pouring and not, putting those things into, the people or what have you, then you're not going to have a village.
No, you're not.
No.
And it's exercise. Someone said to me once, and I thought this was so right, just like, we go to the gym one time and we expect, to have a perfect body or the weight that we want to be or whatever. We just go one time to the gym. It's an exercise. The work we do on ourselves is a practice, and we have to practice it. And I think that if we as adults can work on these things, then we have a better chance of being able to be those role models for children. But then also not just that, we want to be able to show them that, but we want to also be able to talk about it, talk it through with them too. Because the hope is that they, as children, are going to start emulating the qualities of these 6 villagers. I mean, just because they're kids doesn't mean that these things don't exist. I could look back on kids I went to kindergarten with, who I'm still friends with now, and I could tell you right now, my friend Ashley, who I met when I was 4 years old, who is still my friend today, is still my cheerleader villager. From the day we walked into that kindergarten classroom to now, she is still that cheerleader. And that just is my point of saying that is we are born with a lot of really beautiful gifts that just are naturally a part of us. And I'm asking people to look and see inside of you what comes naturally. What is it that you can give to this world that makes you beautiful, that makes you special, that is going to help you love people, support people, put your arms around them? I want people to understand that they have all of this within them. They just have to work on making sure that they're surrounding themselves with the right people to be the recipients of these gifts, and that they are also learning from the right people to be the recipient of those gifts. That's how this works. That's how that village works when it's at its best. Doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect. Doesn't mean there's not going to be fights, controversy, all that. That's all normal.
Right.
But it's just trying to figure out what does that ecosystem look like and how healthy, going back to that word, can we make it? And learning that, again, it's every stage of life, from childhood to adulthood to a 90-year-old woman in a nursing home. The thing that is still the common denominator there is connection.
Look, healthy ecosystem, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Fostering the villager qualities within yourself to be positive, to give back to the people in the village, all right? So we can have a healthy ecosystem. Yes. It's the Chicago connection. I mean, that's okay though. That's okay. All right. But if people want to get a copy of this book, or if they just want to follow you on social media and just check you out in everything or what have you, how can they do so?
I am your virtual village. I always say that. So if you DM me on Instagram, I will answer you back. We will have a conversation. I will be there for you. So Florencian.Romano on Instagram or Facebook. And then if you want to get a copy of the book, you can go to Florencian.com. But you could go to any bookseller, Amazon, Books A Million, anywhere books are sold. You could go ahead and do that wherever your favorite place is. But I am here for you. And we can do this work together. And I really feel like I want people to feel very hopeful for themselves and for the future, that we can combat this loneliness epidemic and we can correct those statistics that you said. And we just help people feel less lonely.
Look here. That sparkling personality's coming through, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. All right. That's just a part of it now. It's just what we do. All right. Chicago. Okay. I mean,
that Midwest charm.
I mean, it's just a Midwest charm. I mean, no offense to my East Coast and West Coast people, but
I love it.
Just
I love it.
But anyway, I'm getting off that soapbox. But no. So I've come to the last question, and this is the question that my show is known for, but I would love to hear your response. Miss Florence and Romano, what is the one word that best describes you and why?
I have been thinking about this as I was preparing for the interview, actually, and I went through a lot of words, and I still think that I don't know if I'm actually going to pick the right one. But I'm going to say, and I don't know if this is the right word to describe something, but I'm going to explain it because I think that's the best way for people to understand why I mean this. Feel is the word I'm going to use that to describe me. Maybe we'll use feelings to describe me. And the reason I'm going to say that is because my favorite quote is Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said. People forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And in my life, when I hopefully am old and gray and my time on earth is done, I hope that my great-grandchildren and anyone else who's still around would say about me that she knew how to make people feel good. She made them feel good. She made them feel seen, heard, understood, loved, special. So feelings, that's the word I'm going to say.
I'm going to go with a word. Since you said feelings, and I think this goes right along with it. Electric.
For me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take it.
I mean, I'm going to go electric, and I'm going to tell you why I'm going to go electric.
Okay.
Like, well, I mean, let's just, for obvious reasons, like electricity, what, you get a charge. Okay, I mean, you know, it's either, well, in this case, man, we're using it to revive ourselves, to bring ourselves to life and to grow. And if we really look at how electricity is used in nature, what happens in the open field when lightning strikes?
You're right. I didn't think about it that way.
Oh, man. You know how many times lightning has struck and I've come out the next day? I'm like, you know what? That wasn't there yesterday. Wait a minute. Where did that come from? Like, these plants haven't grown in a week. Now all of a sudden they're like 6 feet high. But it's that charge. And basically what that charge brings and revitalizes. So electric. And I think what you're doing and, you know, pretty much bringing 6 type of villagers, okay? You're breaking down each one, all right? What they bring, how they're valued and what they share with, you know, with themselves and everything else in common. Like, come on, you know, so.
Thank you, Ty. That's beautiful. Thank you. You made my whole month with that. Thank you so much. What a compliment.
No problem.
Thank you.
Electric. That's just what we do here.
Thank you.
No
problem. You. This was so fun.
Look, high energy. I believe in it. That's the only rule when you come on this platform. It has to be high energy. That's why I gave you electric.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I stepped up because, man, that was a dud. That would be no.
No.
I would not. We would not be having this fun. That's for sure. But I mean, it's, you know, listen. I don't know how you could have anyone on this show and not have fun with you, because it's you. I thank you for saying I'm electric, but I think, you know, you need to look in the mirror, because I think that's for you too. So I'm reflecting that back to you, Ty, because I think you bring that out in people. There's just no way people don't have fun with you.
Conductor. That's who I am. I am the conductor.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
There it is. Boom.
Perfect sense.
Boom.
Beautiful music you make. I like it. It's all musically related, I feel. I love it. Thank you.
I'm a chef over here. I mean, I just have so many pots that I'm storing up. I mean, I don't know what's going on. But anyway.
Love it.
Woo. Ladies and gentlemen, hey, word with Ty Brownlow, okay? Even I don't know what's going to happen sometimes, and it's my show, so I have no idea. But anyway. But no, look here. I have enjoyed you. Most definitely. And I'm going to say this as well. Well, not only since you are a Midwestern, you know, homer like myself, hometown favorite, but I mean, but the doors of Word with Ty Brownlow are open to you. And I stand on this for every person who comes on this platform that I have that connection with. Man, ladies and gentlemen, this has not been the last you have seen of Florence and Romano. Okay, she will be back in future episodes, but this is not the last you've seen of her. So I am extending that branch to you. Whatever else you have going on, I don't look. If you're throwing wooden spoons across the street, then hey, you know what? She's having a wooden spoon throwing contest. Yeah,
my first
cool.
call.
Yeah.
Oh, you're the best. Thank you. I'm going to take you up on that. There's nowhere else I would rather be. Thank you, Ty. That is so generous. This has been so fun. Thank you.
No problem at all. No problem at all. And ladies and gentlemen, look, on that note, this has been Work with Ty Brownlow. I've been your host, Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. You can follow me, all social media platforms, Work with Ty Brownlow. Or you can go to my website, tybrownlow.com. Get this wonderful conversation, plus other great conversations as well. Miss Florence and Romano. We around. Peace, people.